So for today's history topic, we will be talking about perspectives of revolution, the revolution from below, provincial and local elite, role of Filipino clergy, and a pluralistic approach to revolution. So first, we will define what historiography really means. Historiography is basically the writings about history, the meta-level analysis of descriptions of the past. The analysis focuses on narrative, interpretations, worldview, use of evidence, or method of presentation of other historians. Colonel Furey, 1988, defined historiography as the study of the way history has been and is written, the history of historical writing. When you study historiography, you do not study the events of the past directly, but the changing interpretations of those events in the works of individual historians.
In the beginning was the spoken word. Humans lived for tens of thousands of years with language and thus with tales about the past. But without writing, oral history is still important in all parts of the world, and successful transmission of stories over many generations suggests that people without writing can have a sophisticated historical sense. The historical record, however, must start with the system of writing and suitable writing technology. The earliest forms of writing included cuneiform and pictographs, which were inscribed on stone and clay tablets in Egypt and Mesopotamia, as well as Chinese ideograms. The major purpose of writing a historiographical paper is to convey the scholarship of other historians on a particular subject, rather than to analyze the subject itself. A historiography can be a standalone paper, in which case your paper examines the work completed by other historians.
Perspective of revolution.
Overview of some early approaches. Written during the fighting or shortly after and is based on the participants' or victims' writings. Accounts of those anti-clerical or anti-Catholic Filipinos, some holding positions under the American colonial regime that saw the revolution as a struggle of the Filipinos to free themselves from the prior oppression. Second major trend. The characteristic of the colonial period under American and in some cases have persisted after independence in traditional historians.
The Katipunan's bourgeois ideology. Based on Constantino's characterization on Katipuneros, they are considered to be part of middle class, due to the fact that these men had prior knowledge in different fields and even held positions within the Spanish bureaucracy. Andres Bonifacio is considered an ilustrado, even though he lacked formal education. This is apparent because he was more concerned of the learning that he got from reading as compared to those students who were just required to do so. Bonifacio was employed by a foreign firm where he got hands-on experience and even deeper understanding of the practical applicability of the economic protectionism and other obstacles to foreign trade caused by the Spain's exploitative economic policy. There is a significant difference between Bonifacio and his comrades. Bonifacio's nature is precluded by senior responsibility, while his comrades were superior of social superiority. With this, it can be opined that Bonifacio was molded more to be a good follower rather than a leader. While the limelight of the revolution was focused on the elite, it was in fact the masses who contributed more by serving on the front line.
The revolution from below.
Revolution portrayed as a people's war, but failed to take account of the class character of the Katipunan. The abandonment of the revolution by the elite leads to its abandonment of the ordinary people who were their followers. The transfer of allegiance of Paulo de Tavera, Arellano, and Araneta from Malolos government did not bring about a termination of resistance. So the Filipino-American War was just a beginning. The capture of Aguinaldo did not bring an end to the fighting. Then the campaigns of 1902 in Samar and Batangas make it clear. Ileto's Passion and Revolution. It is the first and most creative book that has aroused interest and considerable controversy. Ileto says, a text is incapable of generating multiple meanings in relation to audience or the context. Ileto challenged two notions about the revolution. The first one, the analogy that Filipinos seeking independence is like a mature child seeking independence from his mother. The second one, that Filipinos were looking to change their situation in terms of an ideal situation in the future rather than as a way of regaining what they lost in the past. Two conclusions about the discussion of Katipunan. The Passion tradition described by Ileto can only be shown to have existed in the Tagalog provinces. The second one, the religious tradition that was evidently behind many of these movements was wider than that of the Passion, even in Tagalog region. The Passion tradition. 1. Passion Pilapid. Replaced that of Aquino de Belen, it is the only Philippine passion of sufficient remains to have created the tradition. Second, Ilocano. The earliest listed by Rutana is an anonymous one from Pangasinan in 1855. 3. Pangasinan. Quite different character and length that there was no long passion tradition. 4. Bicolano. The first passion is recorded in 2nd edition, written by Tranquilino Hernandez, but edited by Bishop Gainza in 1868. 5th, Kapampangan. First published Passion by the diocesan priest Father Dionisio Makapinlak in 1876. 6th, Hiligaynon. Work of religious writer Mariano Perfecto in 1884, filled with errors and astonishing barbarisms. Ilocano Passion by Mejia. It is the only passion that holds the distinction of antiquity and widespread use. It is originally written by Saint Vincent Ferrer but translated by Mejia into Ilocano.
The wilder religious tradition, which is the majority of the materials, were found to be translations from the languages such as Spanish. These novenas are only a portion that was taken note of, and it has been reprinted from the 18th century until the present day. Religious and secular differences was not included in full consciousness. Novena was prayed of in various towns, not limited to the capital of San Francisco de Malabon. It also reveals the quote-unquote perceptions of the revolution. Another exact quote stated that it has directed attention to the role of religion in any serious study of Philippine society, and in particular of any mass movement. The book shows the Philippine society during the 19th and 20th century. It is also one of the books that encourage mass participation. It is only limited to a certain number of significance in the history, and it can only be found in the Tagalog provinces, which is the Passion tradition in the book. Religious tradition scope was more than the Tagalog region as well.
Provincial and local elite.
The Filipinos are independent from the Spaniards, yet we are not free from elite Filipino citizens because of their abuse to ordinary Filipinos. According to Milagros Guerrero, pointed out that in spite of concerns of the role of the masses expressed by major historians from Agoncillo onwards, all had in fact examined the revolution from the point of view of elites rather than from below. President Emilio Aguinaldo can't do anything about this issue because he gets the support from the Filipino elites. Even though the Filipino declared independence, the sense of freedom cannot be felt by the ordinary Filipinos because Filipino elites treat them as slaves. And because of that, Americans seized Filipinos because the elites became partner with Americans. Post-revolutionary peasants' resistance to the elites. According to Brian Fagan, in his study about the Central Luzon, peasant movement has distinguished two strands in early history of Central Luzon. There is the communist government and the non-communist government. the pre-revolutionary roots. The latest summer pulahanes of the post-revolutionary period were a continuation of Just movement of the 1880s and 1890s. Through the movement, it appears that some pulahanes we earlier have aided Lulukban's army in Samar, whose primary target are the casual Filipino buyers of abaca and the governmental establishments behind it. After many months of the futile activity, the Americans brought an end of the movement with the execution of its leaders in 1901.
Insufficiency of the kindly some explanation. The mass participation against Americans supported by the evidence that they have degraded Filipinos and other unacceptable treatment they have shown to them. The ordinary people continued to support the war in spite of the forces of the provincial and local elites, the civil and the military. The native masses, majority of them fully understand what is the meaning of nation, but they understand them being in charge for who they wants to govern. They will be overwhelmed considering themselves independent after a long journey of suffering against foreign manipulation.
Role of the Filipino clergy. Number 1. Counterweight to friar influence. Ileto has raised the question of how it was possible to undermine the sentiment of utang na loob. In the 1890s, utang na loob still bound the Filipino masses to Spain, and the chief cause was the religious sanction by the friars. Even the anti-clerical government of the 19th century had no choice but to support the influence of the friar parish priests, the inspiration of resistance to Americans. Going back, in 1898, religious sanction was even more effective. It was a demarcation or separation between those who supported the revolution to the end and those who withdrew their support by the end of 1899. Religious policy of the Malolos government. From June 1898 to January 1899, the views of religious policy struggled for supremacy. First is Mabini, who executed largely through Father Giorgio Aglipay, and second is Father Mariano Sevilla with the aid of Felipe Calderon and other laymen. By January 1899, Mabini gained power for winning against Sevilla. Through this, he achieved his objective of putting the church at the disposal of state. In Panay, though Iloilo City was taken by the Americans in 1899, the resistance only ended in March 1901. The other Tagalog provinces are the most significant participants of the clergy in the resistance movement under the command of General Miguel Malvar. Though there were no clerical military leaders, parish priests played their role in the region. These priests raised funds for Malvar and encouraged people to support the resistance. By the month of December 1901, General Franklin set in motion the infamous reconcentration policy, addressing the problem of the Filipino priests. And from that time over, southern Tagalog provinces were generally out of contact with retreating Malolos government. In the end, Malvar operated with almost complete independence for the rest of the war. A pluralistic approach to the revolution is divided into three categories. First is the class distinctions. There are four terms that correlate: elite, ilustrado, the wealthy, and the haves. Education abroad is made possible by wealth. Wealth plus education is equal to political and intellectual elite. Our Katipuneros are educated, but from the middle class, or even from poverty. Second, regional variations. Tagalog provinces, and to an extent in parts of the Ilocano provinces, was anti-friar feeling at all widespread among the ordinary people. Third and last, the masses and the revolution. Mass support of the war should not be exaggerated. The war had provided opportunities for upward mobility. In the end, the basic social structure was largely intact, and the areas of social unrest at the end of the Spanish regime would continue to be such through the end of the American regime. Nevertheless, kalayaan has always been the goal to be won for a large majority of the Filipinos.